How would you like to earn money while walking more? That's the topic of today is having fun while we're exercising, breaking free from the system, choosing our own venture. I'm Dr. Dave, and our guest today is Dave as well, or David. And we're going to be talking
Yes.
about this really cool, fun stuff that program that he has going on of, how can we be incentivized to actually get healthy in our life? So, Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dave, for having me. Enjoyed linking up with you and learning all about what you got going there, and I'm thrilled to be on. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. So let's get into the history of you a little bit, just for a framework standpoint. It can just be as fun as you want it to be, but I know that there's some military in there and some fun things that you've been through. So take me to the journey to where you are now with offering rewards for walking.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I was born and raised in Central Mass. Was more or less kind of a jock in high school. I ended up going to the military academy at
Hmm.
West Point. Played baseball there as well, and was on active duty, obviously. So I was actually on active duty twice. So I did about 9 years active duty. I was an officer, field artillery. So boom, 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 the big
Oh,
guns going off. Yeah.
I
Oh
actually
yeah.
didn't know that. My
Um,
dad was artillery for the Marine Corps.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, we trained with the Marine guys at Fort Sill. They were always
Okay.
there. We were training with them. Yeah, it's a good time, good time. So I did that, came off active duty. Actually, along the way though, one little point, because you just in your intro there, I just recall when learning to drive, and my father walking me through, the costs of maintaining a car, insurance, all that. I do remember thinking people that make errors driving pay more, but then in healthcare, I learned as well at the time, it's not really necessarily based on your own contribution or fitness level. Everybody's kind of paying the same. So shared value insurance is actually seeping into my head earlier than I even realized just from doing this podcast with you. So um, from there, I've worked a lot in sales, business development, executive level, C-level, bottom line, a lot of sales, biz dev. Around 2013 or so, 2012, 2013 was when I first heard of Bitcoin. And I started just sniffing around a lot. I started acquiring it aggressively 2013, 14, all the way, all along. And um, it also kind of went along with the curiosity breaking free from the system, being more self-efficient, sustaining yourself. I did, in all honesty, I started taking a real good look at what is going on in the world. How does the government really function? Um, I had a lot of experience with Department of Defense, kind of brute force. We were steamrolled in a lot of ways. How does the government function? How does the financial system function? That was where I really started digging. So into the Bitcoin rabbit hole and whatnot, getting up to around 2020, 2021, the whole ICO thing in 2016, 17 and all of that, the block size wars. And I never really nibbled at any of these ICOs or went down that path at all. Just kind of observed it crash and, spike up, crash and burn. But as we got into 2020, 21, I started enlightening. The Lightning Network was becoming validated and more credible and building and becoming resilient.
Yeah.
I stumbled across Smiles, Egg and Daniel, or the two father-son combo, um, that started it. And at the time, it was just, hey, we'll pay you to walk and a couple of organic games. I didn't really know, but where we're at now, and it still is that. How's that? Of course. Where we're at now is, Smiles is more of a, I would say, a Bitcoin loyalty rewards company, an engine.
Yeah.
And think of Smiles as in the middle. And then on the business to consumer side, maybe Dr. Dave uses it, maybe I use it. We get paid to walk, play games, take surveys, go in Bitcoinverse and run around on the map and do all that. But then on the other side of the engine is B2B. So we can stick this stuff, into the healthcare ecosystem and basically give you a daily step challenge constantly around the clock every day. So if you're an insurance provider, there's incentives there. We'll help you lower costs. If you start incentivizing people to walk more, your costs are going to come down. If you're a fitness coach or guru, or maybe you run a small college or a major university and you have a huge massive staff of people, we have a product called Smiles Pro. You can get everybody on that. So that's kind of where we're at now. And we're having a lot of fun. We're growing rapidly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's all about, is the fun equation. So let's dive into that of what are you seeing from an experience standpoint of, obviously, like the big thing that comes to mind, Pokemon Go, right? When that first launched, it kind of
Yep.
changed the game of the way people thought of using technology to get people active. What have you seen as like kind of the downstream from that? Has that permeated into culture enough that you guys are seeing that kind of engagement, or where are we at with the fun side of it?
Yeah. Great question. I mean, we're all about, our mission is, look, we want to help people earn Bitcoin, help you build your health and wealth simultaneously. So we're committed, we're obligated, we're in the trenches working to get you more ways to earn. But gamification and the fun component is a huge aspect of that. You know, on our platform right now, the arcade is, arguably the most active and, leader across most categories, if you want to look at it that way. So gaming, we know the people that are earning Bitcoin walking, there tends to be a correlation with gaming in general as well. Um, we have, from feedback from our user base, we have never had anyone actually delete the app. We've had across the board, positive feedback as far as their experience of receiving the rewards and so forth. So we're seeing that engagement. Me personally, I can say that, I've made a commitment into the company and obviously incented to use the app, but I can honestly say that I walk a lot more personally because of the app.
Right.
I cycle a lot more as well. We may add that feature. You never know. Wink, wink.
Yeah, right.
The
You heard it
but
first here.
I do find, yeah, I do find myself kind of like checking. I'm curious what the steps say. The app will show you your raw number of steps, and then it'll spit out some satoshis, a very small unit of Bitcoin for those that aren't aware. Um, based on certain intervals of steps achieved and other qualifiers we have in there and bonuses. So I do find myself doing that. And I will say this, though, above and beyond the steps and the activity is even, let's say it's 5 satoshis. What is that right now? Well below a penny USD, or even 100 cents. I do find myself, I've been accumulating Bitcoin all along here. I just get, there is like a dopamine effect of just seeing those sats kind of hit you for whether it was walking or, like I said, Pokemon Go. On the map, you walk to a certain location and then you got the reward. So you got paid for walking and also the reward from the provider or, the partner that we have advertising inside the ecosystem. Um,
Yeah.
so even the smallest number of Satoshis, I do find to be fun and engaging because I know what it is, and it's kind of like given to me right there on the spot. It just is, that stimulus, that dopamine hit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's winning at the game no matter what it is. And I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
when I'm sure lots of people have watched the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, and there's a very specific segment that's relatable to this of like, even if he was playing poker for $1, it was his goal to win those dollars from the other people. Like there's a competitiveness in the human brain that it doesn't matter what the amount, it doesn't matter what it is, but there's that fun drive that a lot of people who are into that thing, that percentage of the population will be driven by this. Have you guys done any cool research around um, tracking people before they sign up for the program on what their average daily step count is, and then after getting on the program, have you seen any stats like that? It would be hard to do because you guys obviously can't
Well,
pre get their information, but if there's
right. I mean, you're giving us, I think you're helping us add some features to our B2B products here potentially. So thank
right.
you. So there's fun. There you go. The uh, we don't have that's very intriguing. We do have research, external research. Smiles did not conduct this, but it did show that when engaged in a daily steps challenge, that individuals increase their daily steps by a little bit under 5,000 steps per day. So they were walking
Wow.
about 5,500 steps or so, and they got up to 10 and a half through the use of the daily steps challenge. Again, that's a third party and external, but it's published on the government website. I actually sent that on LinkedIn if people want to look it up. Um, so we've seen that. We've seen a savings of, $400 to $600 a month in terms of health premiums. But the before and after, if we had a way, maybe that's an API with other walking apps or something. If we had a way to get the historical context, that would be very interesting. Or we could certainly retroactively look over time to see a user's time with smiles and how that has
Yeah.
risen or fallen, or most
Yeah, that'd
likely,
be
I would say,
super fun to follow. Yeah, and
yeah.
then you could do split tests to see what people are really incentivized at. But 5,000 steps more, I mean, that's a significant change. We're talking, I'm in the longevity space. Getting someone to walk an additional 5,000 steps is like adding 3 years to their life kind of thing. Like, that's a huge game-changing difference for people. Like, who cares about the reward? The reward is your health. Like, if
Oh,
you're adding
I
that
agree.
much
Yeah.
to it, that's insane. Wow, that makes me want to do more step challenges. It's interesting because early on in my career, way back when there was only pedometers available, so we're talking like 2005 to 2008 kind of thing, I ran a couple of pedometer challenges, and
Uh,
I had great success with it, but there was no concept of keeping track of this type of stuff. So I always wondered in the back of my head, like, how incentivized are people? But 5K is a game changing difference for people.
Yeah, I think it is. And then I try to break that down and kind of make it fun. Now, I live right in Boston. We live in Boston, so it's very, there are areas where it's kind of villagey. It's conducive to walking, I'll put it that way. So you
Hmm.
have kind of stimuli around you, nice nature, there's activities and stuff. So I wouldn't say it's easy to walk, but it's easier perhaps than if you were in a less active area, possibly. That being said, like, what is 5,000 steps? Like, how do what does that mean? Like, how much time do I need or effort? I do I go for a small little walk, like immediately. Um, Brings a bottle of water with me in the morning. It's super short, but I think it's about like 800 to 1,100 steps or something. And, look, that's 20% of the way there. And it's not
Uh-huh.
a long, grueling walk. It's a real chill stroll kind of around. And then other little things along the way. And what are you doing now that maybe you could convert into steps? Or what are you doing now involving steps that could maybe be extended? Is there a nice park you could kind of route into and take another 10 minutes and route your way through, engage with some nature and add on 2,500 steps right there.
Yeah.
So,
That's
um,
actually probably
yeah,
the most beneficial. Like, I've never heard it put that way. There's that thought process. I always park in the back of parking lots, but I could even choose to park in other parking lots and walk through nature if there's a potential to walk 10 minutes through a park. I would imagine that would be pretty popular in the inner cities where there's probably lots of little neighborhood parks that you could walk through.
sure. Yeah. Yep.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Do you guys give bonuses when you hit the 10K mark kind of thing, or any differences that way? Or
We have the incentive set up now based off of other activities, but that is something, and with maybe a retrospective analysis of user kind of step growth, if you will. Maybe
yeah,
that comes a little bit more into play. We do have bonuses now based off of, whether you did something else on the app or what else you did on the app. So you can jack up your stats just from walking. But that's interesting to look back retroactively. What's the threshold for, everybody uses this 10,000, and I agree with that
yeah,
because I'm walking personally. I know that this may sound crazy, and it's not just because of the app, but I am literally walking probably 15 to 22K a day. Um, so 10, I kind of have in my head, like I know what that is. But I don't know. Are the smilers also kind of there, or are they, going from 3,000 to 7,000, or do we have people going from 7,000 to 15,000? I'm sure we have all of the above, with the number of users we have.
right,
But that was very interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How are the traditional systems responding to this as you're approaching health insurance companies and corporations? Like, what's the general consensus of you present this information? Are they like, get away, devil, or are they receptive to it?
Yeah. It's the audience may or may not. You and I spoke. a few weeks back. It was a great conversation, and I have to thank you for that as well, actually, again, because after that, Smiles Pro, that's our main, our flagship B2B product, if you will. That's where we basically give you to kind of put the basic elements of the consumer app into a team format. Like run your little team, you can have steps, challenges, you can put messages out there to the team and stuff like that. It's on iOS and Android. But I've been, we have been asking, what is the best way to approach this? People like it. We get great feedback, but how do you really sell it? And after we talked, I started thinking, who are the people that, like if you're at a health insurance company, it's generally a bigger organization. Each individual person may not be incented by the users of the health plan improving their health. But if you're a Dr. Dave, perhaps we spoke about your very high caliber clientele and whatnot, but you're in a position where people are expecting you to get them results.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's the better audience initially, or an angle initially for Smiles Pro. And interestingly, we had someone recently who was, in effect, kind of a coach, guru, fitness, start mentioning our product on social media, how he's using it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's helping him get results. So that's great to see. But within the larger organizations, I would say, because I'm the one doing a lot of those discussions, I would say the topics have been as follows. There's either kind of like an A or B response to Bitcoin, like, yeah, okay, I understand it, it's cool, that seems it would make sense, or just confusion around it, or just kind of unease and discomfort, not really wanting to engage with it. So, okay, but let's say they are receptive to it. Um, there have been quite a few scenarios where people have shown a strong level of interest, and we've even, talking minutia and numbers about how it could fit into existing structures. So you have, how is this stuff sold? So, how do you get that out there? And there's brokers, there's consultants, there's agencies, there's governments. So going through all the complexities of that, but people overall, I'd say the response has been positive. They get it. Like, hey, this is the stick. This is kind of the carrot stick tool, maybe to stimulate, poke and nudge the users to walk more, which is going to help you save money and or help you make yourself look better and get more clients because you're helping them increase their health. So there seems to be, I would say, more agreement on that than disagreement. And then it's, how do we kind of wiggle it in there? How do you get it in there financially? What does that look like? I'd say that's probably where it's at now.
Okay. And are you feeling, because one of the things that I had in my professional career when working with insurance companies is that um, I was considered very disruptive because I cared more about the patient end result, right? And so, are you finding the roadblocks, the people that are saying no to this? Is it just a general no, or are they just like, are they being dismissive around the component of a health insurance company or corporations? It's not their job or their responsibility to make their employees healthy. Like, where's that boundary being right now? Because I haven't talked to corporations in a while about this, so I'm curious just from a landscape of what is the general consensus out there.
Yeah, I would say that to qualify that, our efforts have been more on organizations that have already shown
Mm,
uh, a willingness to embrace kind of a loyalty and a rewards approach in some way,
got it.
um, to see if we can just basically swap their infrastructure with Bitcoin, our infrastructure, in essence, in fact,
Oh,
to
that's
make
smart.
it more efficient and powerful. Although I've had some just flat out no, the flat out no's are usually Bitcoin based.
Mm,
They're just, oh, Bitcoin, no, or oh, it's too early, or that'll never fly. I can't get that by such and such a decision maker. Um, but there's been more when there's not that. There tends to be fairly quick, I would say, uh, conceptual embracing of, this pay to walk type of activity and providing that incentive and something that can be kind of slick and easy. And then these people generally are a little more in step with Bitcoin and are more open-minded about it. So they kind of can go down that. But I will say it's not just health insurance, not to life insurance. There
No, no.
is right now we have that to my knowledge, there's a very well-funded or well-funded life insurance startup, Bitcoin related life insurance startup, and then another one as well. There may be others as well, and um, there's definitely this concept of life insurance, they want to, smoking, this and that, and they're going to run all their algorithms and they're using a lot of AI these days as well. But what about daily steps? If I do, to your point, the 5,000, if I do 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 daily steps, if I can go to a life insurance company and say, look, we have the tool that'll do this for you. And then you'll be able to say, look, you did this many steps, we'll give you a Bitcoin refund of this amount. Um, I could say that uh, there's it's kind of a binary outcome there. There might be immediate, very strong alignment of interest, and then there might be a firm rejection based on Bitcoin. But Mass Mutual now, remember, back in 2020, the oldest insurance company in the entire country, Mass Mutual, put $100 million in Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So
I actually
it's
didn't.
not like,
I didn't remember
yeah,
that. Yeah, so thank you. That's awesome. I think I remember hearing about it, but never looked into it. It's 100 million they dumped in. Okay.
yeah, I think it was 100 million exact. And so the insurance industry is there's plenty of people. My sense is there's plenty of people within insurance, health, and life that realize that, you know, maybe some people are doing a lot more to help their cause than others, and maybe they should be rewarded. There was one venture that apparently used, and I don't. I've used it, technology gadgets like Apple watches or something similar to that to incent like, hey, or take this and hopefully you'll walk more. And perhaps, that's like a hardware first, capital expenditure first model, and then hope for something where our model we're suggesting is more of a kind of slide it
Yeah.
into someone's daily routine and get them to, mentally and conceptually kind of commit to, oh, I'm walking more, I'm getting this reward. This is fun. This is nice. Let's do it more.
That's
Type
actually
of
a
thing.
really great point because I've been in wearables for a very long time, and there has been a trend this past 5 years where companies just buy an Aura ring or something for their top executives and say, here we go, we're going to do a sleep challenge or we're going to do a walk challenge, and then they have no structure to like actually follow up and incentivize people to do anything. And so they're
Yeah.
typically like basically just giving people free wearables, and then no one uses them because no one knows how to actually utilize them. So it's a
Yeah.
very
And with
interesting
Smiles
thought.
Pro, right. And like we could take this a lot further. And, these guys are, um, just a little extra plug for the guys, the team at Smiles. I mean, they are just, as far as developing and building product, it's just amazing, honestly. And the UI and UX, very strong capabilities. But with Smiles Pro, who's to say we don't add a capability to deliver messaging, video messaging or something else to along the way to add motivational. Maybe it's the CEO or maybe it's the
Yep.
health coach, if you will, and you can add that into the product to rather than, hey, here's a watch, hopefully you use it. Now it's kind of like ingrained into your engagement throughout the day, and there's back and forth interaction to keep that positive behavior going.
Yeah. Well,
Theoretically.
I can tell you in the startup world, there's a huge trend. And I know you and I talked about geocaching, but another topic that comes to mind
Yeah.
when you're saying this is that a lot of startups are actually focusing on real world, in real life meetups. And they're combining like calendars and meetups for people. This would be an opportunity where you guys could probably integrate an ability to get together and group walk or group message together or form little groups of same city type of thing. I think that would be, I think we're all just craving real world connection is what it comes down to.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So the social aspect of us, you can befriend people on Smiles and send sats back and forth. we have leaderboards, and also on the roadmap is more localized leaderboards, which I think leads to what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Like, hey, who's walking around me? Who walks more than me around here? I want to go challenge that lady or guy, you know.
yeah,
I'm having a little fun with it, but you could easily see how, you know, 10 avid walkers could, link up,
yep,
as we, maybe supplement the app's features with stuff like that. But we have the leaderboard. We can break that. I'm sure we can break that down by zip code or something like that over time. That's a great idea. Yeah.
yeah.
And the
That's fun.
geocaching, I actually looked into that as well,
Nice.
strictly off of our conversation. You got me. There's definitely some overlap there, and thank you for that as well.
Yeah, well, no matter what, you can still geocache on the geocaching app and earn Bitcoin rewards while you're geocaching if you just have both apps installed. So
You know what,
that's
though?
a
I have a confession. I have a confession. Um, and by the way, the audience should, Dr. Dave is, he knows a lot of different things. I noticed that about him so far. I'll say that. And I'm very blunt and honest. People that know me well, he does know a lot of, like a circle around of a lot of different things. But off of our conversation, I started thinking geocache. Smiles. This is the connection's too obvious here. It's got to be here. Something's here for sure. So
right.
I used another application and I attempted a task, and I think they had it as like a beginner task. I tell you, I couldn't find that damn thing. I looked all over. I was had my bike racked up. I was
Yep.
I was looking the clues, and then they sent me I got to follow up a little bit more on it, but I did go out and
Some of
try.
them, some of them are blatantly obvious, and some of them are extremely difficult. And then there's forgotten about geocaches, and so like people steal them. There is like a small percentage
Yeah.
of problems of like animals, squirrels will run off with these things, right? Like you just never
Yeah.
know like
Yeah.
what's. And so the in the community, people try to report that as much as possible. Like, hey, this geocache is no longer available. But still, there can be occasions where there is no actual geocache there, and people still try to go find it, and no one actually reports it. So, yeah, best of
Yeah.
luck to you. Give a bunch of them a try. It's fun when you pop up the map of, even like with our kids. We'll go somewhere, and it's just as simple as, oh, what's around here? So we were just in Wisconsin, for a funeral, unfortunately, and but like as we're traveling around, we pop it up and say, oh, let's go down this nature path and find these 5 geocaches, and so it's a super fun, engaging activity that gets you out and into an area that is new, and now you can earn Bitcoin with it too if you just download more than one app.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And the potential alignment there with some geocaching. Yeah, it's apparent. I appreciate that. Um, and that's part of the whole thing. Like just having fun. Like, what can you do? You said like people are craving these these real world things. And I agree completely. Not to be off topic, but if you look at the social media companies, I think like things like what we're doing here or YouTube, maybe it seems more. There's ways that it can be more real to people and useful. I would use the word useful. Like how useful is my hour on this application versus this one?
Yeah,
Neither are perfect, but how useful is it this one versus this one? And I think we need to really keep that in mind with Smiles. I think we are, and even more so. So the map, the Pokemon Go function, and just tying fun and gaming to fitness and health. There's a lot we can do there. Geocaching, tasks, little mini jobs. There's just a lot there. Surveys that, mobile research is a whole category in and of itself. And all of that is getting out. If you go out and do a task inside Bitcoinverse on the map, and the task itself had you do, let's be honest and say the task itself, made you do about 400 steps. I'm making that up. Well, what happens if you went there to do it and you did it? And then because you were there, you ended up walking another 6,000 steps that afternoon. So there's like a multiplier there, just getting
yeah,
people out. Uh,
yep.
Geocaching does that for sure. It's probably right now. It's probably the most effective tool at getting people out.
Yeah, it's interesting when I work with my clients there's this like decision fatigue. There's big roadblocks that we all have in our brains. And sometimes, like, I have to work with clients that are so restrictive in themselves of getting out into a habit that if I just get them to tie their shoes on a daily basis as if they were going to go to the gym, statistically, without telling them to go to the gym, but just telling them to tie their shoes every day as if they're going to the gym, statistically, they go to the gym more. And so it's the same concept of like, can we get someone to go 2 blocks and then have that as a starting point? And once they get out there, they start to feel better. And suddenly it's like, oh, I've always wanted to go down the road over there. And so it's always these little stepping stones that's, especially with this type of app, especially with this type of application, the big win is getting people off the couch. The 5,000 steps is great, but the person who takes their first 400 steps, like you said, that's a huge win as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's, I mean, people have to keep that in mind, is that any activity is better than no activity.
Yeah, absolutely. And the mental, the whole walking thing, hidden in plain sight, right? Like a lot of things in life, uh, it's almost akin to kind of like opening your mind. I found like if when your mind opens in a certain way, it doesn't really turn back. And by that I mean, like, let's say Bitcoin, like, in 2010, maybe you never heard of it, but then in 2016, let's say somebody started thinking about it. Where are they now with it 8 years after that? I bet chances are they're kind of like immersed in it to at least some extent because it just kind of kept going.
Yep.
Once they opened that door and compared it to the alternatives, they kind of kept going, even if they still use the alternatives, which I do. We all do, I think. We all have to right
Yep.
now. And I don't necessarily see a binary outcome of like no dollars or fiat and only Bitcoin. Uh, Different topic, but opening your mind, it kind of stays open. Walking to it, my own personal experience at least, is like you start poking around a little. It's kind of almost like shopping, poking around, like, oh, I could walk there, or
Yep.
like, oh, we could do that, or we could connect these two things because I know a way to just do this and this. And it can build. There's a we're not going to walk 50,000 steps a day. There's a wall somewhere, but there's a lot of room in there to go from that, the sedentary person from doing 1,500 steps a day up to 6,000 a day for them. I mean, that is
Yep.
just, of all people. I don't know all the medical details, but just thinking about it, that would be huge. I'd imagine the weight loss, the improvement,
Yep.
cardiovascular and across the board would be incredible.
Yep. Yeah, I always try to remind people that the 10,000 step recommendation is overall a great recommendation. However, for a good chunk of the population, that's not the starting point. Is if you are a 400-pound
Right.
diabetic person who's been 30 years of sitting at a computer chair, 10,000 steps will tear you apart. And so how can we
Oh
get you
yeah,
started on,
absolutely.
a couple hundred steps? Typically in that scenario, I'm actually seeing on average people only taking 600 steps a day. And when you think about that, I mean, that's such a low volume of like movement for their body that they don't even have enough movement to just flush the tissue around, let alone actually like make some sort of physical gain. So just getting them up and getting them to 1,000 steps is even massively significant in their health journey. So starting in those basic steps is just a huge thing. And man, if they can win some Bitcoin along the way, that's even more powerful. Um, well,
Sure.
any other wisdom that you want to put out there as far as this is your thought process of fun or engagement or Bitcoin? What else do you want to share with the world?
I would say on Bitcoin, um, I realize that it's very easy to kind of obsess about the ups and downs. But I would just say try to look, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. Um, the exchange rate in your local fiat, USD, whatever, I understand it's important. I believe it. I understand that, and I agree that it is important. But try your best to one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, and think of more about what it is doing, what it can do. Not even with regards to smiles per se, although rewards I think are a good category for Bitcoin for sure. A great use case. but what it can do in terms of, our energy infrastructure, our energy production. Um, I know it's controversial, but you and I and others probably share the same thoughts that the positive benefits to climate and our earth and the environment and whatnot on a net basis. And used as collateral, like bringing energy to a remote village in Africa. These real things. Stay focused on that. As far as the fun and gaming and a connection to Bitcoin via Smiles. Um, like I said, like I'm 49. I find myself walking consistently and cycling consistently. It's
Hey,
not solely because of Bitcoin. I wouldn't say that. It's not accurate to say. I've always been active and athletic. But there is a connection there. It's kind of like a self-sufficiency kind of personal pride kind of like, ecosystem, like uh it kind of fits in. Well, I'm going to take ownership of this Bitcoin and also myself.
yep,
You know, I'm responsible for trying to be healthy for my daughter and wife and us. It's my responsibility. I think there's like those ethos are within the Bitcoin community as well. There's a lot of overlap there. So, Bitcoin is about fundamentals, blocking and tackling. Every 10 minutes roughly, a new block. Validate the transactions, mine blocks, hash rate. It's not, 20 years from now, it's going to be very boring. It's going to be like water and electricity, is my prediction. I really
yeah.
feel that way. But I know it's more exciting now. Um, but it's basic. So I would just kind of do the same as far as fun and health. You got to walk, you got to eat
Nice.
good. But Dr. Dave is the expert. Um, I try to do my best, but
You're doing right.
that's what I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got the foundations down, and that's what matters the most. That's what we're all about. Oddly enough, when I say breaking free from the system and choosing your own adventure, breaking free from the traditional healthcare system is realizing that we actually have control and power of our own lives. And too many people in this world think that they pay for health insurance and that health insurance is responsible for keeping them healthy, and they have no sense of their own responsibility. So oddly enough, saying breaking free from the system is literally about taking personal responsibility for your health, and you're doing that. So you're a prime example. So, man, thank you for sharing everything like this. How can people get a hold of you if they have any questions or what point us to the place where they can download the app would be great too.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I'll give you my email right here, David at DAVID, David at smilesbitcoin.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn as well. Smilesbitcoin.com. You can go there to download the app. You can look it in the App Store, iOS and Android. Look up Earn
Oh, nice.
Bitcoin or to Smiles Bitcoin. It's there. You can download it for free. Smiles Pro is a enterprise product also on iOS and Android. There is a cost with that, but it's a B2B product. The B2C product is 100% free. We've got now 10, 15 ways you can earn Bitcoin right away the minute you download it. So that's how
Awesome.
you can stay in touch with me. And yeah,
And I think you have, what did you say, 200,000 people that have downloaded the app at some point?
yeah, it's above that. Yep.
Yeah, crazy.
Yep.
So you're not the first. If you go and download this app, you're not the first person there. You're going to be joining a whole bunch of others that have already had success.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be fun. So, well, thank you
All
very
right.
much for sharing all of this. That will be in the show notes for you those listening. And yeah, we look forward to seeing everyone walking and earning Bitcoin.
That's right. Let's go. I appreciate it. Thank